Hello and welcome to the final session of the 2020 International Public Library Fundraising Conference. I'm Christina McPhillips, Vice President of Business Development at Carl Bloom Associates, and in this session I will share the 2020 Library Giving Day results with you. After that, you'll hear from some of your peers as they discuss Library Support Network, Shared Impact, and our future. And before I go into the 2020 Library Giving Day results, I want to thank all of you for joining us virtually for this event. We hope that despite our differences, our love of libraries has brought us together. It's been our pleasure at Carl Bloom Associates to be part of the team that builds this conference each year. And with that, it's my pleasure to share the 2020 Library Giving Day results with you. All right. So before we get started, what is Library Giving Day? Library Giving Day is the product of the 2017 International Public Library Fundraising Conference and the brainchild of Jonna Ward at the Seattle Public Library Foundation. It really came from libraries having the desire to have their very own national and international day of giving. Library Giving Day is similar to Giving Tuesday in that Library Giving Day's website provides a number of free resources for libraries to use. It was launched in 2019, so 2020 is our second year, and I'd like to say that Library Giving Day website is managed and designed by the Carl Bloom Associates team. And I really want to give a shout out to some of our great graphic designers and to Rob Bloom, who maintains the website, our excellent copywriters who take all of our collective library knowledge from the last 40 years and package it into really beautiful fundraising materials for libraries. So, before we go on, we definitely have to talk about some of the environmental factors that were happening during Library Giving Day and before Library Giving Day. And I want to point out that there were some big things. There was COVID-19, and because of COVID-19, we as an agency actually decided to rewrite a number of the free emails that we've provided on librarygivingday.org. It was very important for us to be appropriate in the messaging that we provided to the libraries. In the free resources that they were able to download. So I want to make sure that you know also that Library Giving Day was on April 23rd, and that was about a month before the social justice movements and civil unrest that we see right now occurred. So really only COVID-19 was an impact and not anything having to do with the social justice movement. Now, I've been referencing librarygivingday.org, so let me tell you a little bit more about it if you've not visited it yourself. So if you go to librarygivingday.org, you'll see that it's your one-stop shop for free resources to hold your own Library Giving Day campaign. As you see here on the site, you can find logos and graphics that are downloadable. We have a wonderful 10-page full-scale campaign toolkit that goes through campaign planning timelines, branding, a huge overview, library and donor engagement strategies, how to promote Library Giving Day. There's PR tips. There are Facebook and Twitter organic posts. There are other things that you can copy and paste. It's very easy for you to learn so much more about Library Giving Day if you read through the toolkit, so I recommend it for next year. Also on the site, there are posters that you can download, and we have emails that you can download as well, and you can just have a graphic designer adjust those materials for your library specifically. So when it comes to library participation, I want to point out a really cool feature on the Library Giving Day website. Libraries can sign up to participate in Library Giving Day by providing their name and the address of their library. We have a list and a map of all of the libraries that have signed up since we launched Library Giving Day in 2019, and signups continue even now. So as of today, we have 298 libraries in North America that have signed up on the website. I want to point out that of those 298, 93 provided results for this report that you see today. So, all right, on to the results, everything that you really came here to learn about. When we looked at the 2019 revenue versus the 2020 revenue, there was a significant increase, and we were so pleased to see that because when it came to COVID-19, we had no idea what was going to happen. But there was a 49% increase year over year. So, woo! Woo! The libraries that reported to us made over $1 million collectively, and that was really an exciting number to hit, so we were very pleased. The total number of gifts that were made were 9,435 across all of the 93 libraries that sent results in. And so that was an increase of 88% over 2019. And we had an average gift for all reporting libraries of $117, which is a pretty healthy average gift. When we asked libraries about their revenue goals, they let us know that 70% of them did reach the goal that they had set for themselves. We asked the libraries what they had projected to make or what their goal was, and that total number was around $800,000. But as you can see, they beat it significantly. And this is something that we were pleased to see too, because with coronavirus, we didn't know how communities were going to respond. Of course, a lot of people were losing their jobs, but we were so pleased to see the communities come out for libraries to really rally around the libraries. Excuse me. Now, when we looked at the channels that were used, and we think that the channels are very important. We want to know what you're doing, how you are asking for donations. Is this primarily a digital campaign, or are some doing it in the mail? And we do see that it is primarily a digital campaign. Most libraries promoted Library Giving Day through email, social media, and on their website. And so when we focus on social media, because it's kind of the appropriate medium and the popular one for Library Giving Day, we saw that Library Giving Day was promoted mostly on Facebook, on Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, and on Twitter. And we saw a few libraries that were adventurous, and they spread themselves out to LinkedIn, YouTube, and even Nextdoor, which was great, and we would love to see more of that next year. When we looked at the 2020 planning, and this chart specifically shows the number of weeks organizations started planning versus the total campaign revenue, we saw that 5 libraries were able to start planning 8 to 10 weeks prior to Library Giving Day. And those are the larger libraries, excuse me, and they did make up a big chunk of the gifts. And I think that Seattle Public Library is probably included in this number. And I know that they had a team at Seattle that was able to start planning pretty far in advance. They usually run a very robust campaign. But when we look at other libraries that were planning, we saw some that planned 2 to 4 weeks and 0 to 12 weeks prior. And we saw some significant gifts, which I admit I wouldn't have expected because it's not what we saw in 2019 for that same time frame. So it was really some good giving. I do wonder if that has anything to do with the environmental factor of coronavirus closing down schools and driving people to use their libraries virtually for homeschooling purposes. Were more people aware of libraries in the 0 to 4 weeks before April 23rd because they were using them more than they had or in a different way than they had before? Libraries really rose to the occasion in this instance, and so I think that that might be the positive impact we saw right before Library Giving Day. Now, as I kind of mentioned a moment ago, when we look at the number of organizations for 2019 planning that started planning versus the total number of revenues seen in 2019, we do see that there was less revenue for those that started planning in that 0 to 4 weeks out. It's very different than what we saw in 2020. I think a big takeaway here is to plan as far out as you possibly can. When you can, there are benefits to doing that. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about matching gifts, and then I'll go into some highlights. So we at Carl Bloom always talk about the benefits of matching gifts. And so here are the number of organizations with matching gifts and whether or not they reach their goal. So 22% of the organizations that turned in their results had a matching gift, and of those, 80% reached their goal. 78.5% of libraries did not have a matching grant, but we do recommend trying to get a match either from a major donor or a company. It's always great to be able to say to your donors, your gift will be matched dollar for dollar up to a certain amount. We know this is a very effective strategy and that donors are looking to maximize their gifts. Okay, and last but not least, some highlights from actual libraries that participated. So there were some libraries that had fantastic success and they were very happy to share it. The Anchorage Library Foundation had a $5,000 goal, but they raised $24,000. And of their campaign, they said about 350 of our 400 donors are new, and many of them shared great testimonials with their gifts. We ran 2 campaigns, one to existing friends of the library and Anchorage Library Foundation donors, and one for cardholders. Love seeing fundraising to cardholders. The Brooklyn Public Library had a $15,000 goal, but they raised $58,000. I'd like to say that they worked with our team here, so that was very exciting. The Lexington Public Library had a $2,000 goal, but they raised over $3,000. And of their campaign, they said, we created 4 Facebook ads targeting different library messages to Facebook users. This was really successful, especially with the business community. We boosted each ad for $10 and received 5 gifts from brand new donors, one of whom scheduled a recurring gift. And then finally, the Seattle Public Library Foundation, who's kind of the big fish, raised $338,000. So it's very exciting. All right. And finally, with all of that being said, I'd like to remind you to please sign up for the 2020 Library Giving Day campaign. We would love to have you if you haven't participated already. You can see how impactful it is, and it's going to continue growing over the years. So dip your toe in the water and join us. Know that there are a lot of free resources for you to access on Library Giving Day. And with that, I'm going to conclude this portion of the session, and I'm going to go into a pre-recorded session with my good friend, Jonna Ward, and some of your peers. This was recorded about a week ago. Thank you so much. We hope you had a wonderful conference. Enjoy the next session.
All right, everyone. We are winding things down after 3 days here. And really what we are doing now is bringing together some of the folks who have been participating, some of the ideas we've been talking about, but really thinking about the shared impact and what our future is. And just so you know, I've been in library development now for 19 years. And while it is never dull and it's always changing, it is so easy to become insular and needing fresh perspectives. And you need to be re-energized. And that's really what this is about. This informal network of library development peers does that for me. And I believe that our sector is maturing, and gone are the days when folks like I could, or me, could like slip in to these jobs and not even necessarily know the jobs we were taking. Because I am thrilled to see the caliber of talent that you all bring to these positions, and you're really helping us grow the sector. So I have invited 3 newish foundation leaders to share their perspectives. And let me start by introducing them. So first off, we have Kristin Barsness. She's the interim ED at the King County Library System Foundation. That is a county system sitting next door with Seattle Public Library. She has 25 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. She runs her own consulting firm, and she has worked in healthcare and education and has been able to draw from that. We've got Brenda Langstraat, who joined the Chicago Public Library Foundation as president in 2018. And she has deep experience leading organizations that work in the private and public sector, and so think education, schools, and parks. And we also have Patrick Stewart, who became CEO of the San Diego Public Library Foundation in 2019 as well. And he has led organizations with a focus on literacy and arts and has now moved into this position. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining me. And I just had to say, I have loved the opportunity to be able to spend time talking with you. We've had a chance throughout the last couple months, and you've made my world much more fun, and I've learned so much. And so I'm just thrilled to have you here. All right.
Thanks, Jonna.
So let's just jump right in. We don't have a ton of time. These will feel a little bit like speed dating, but I wanted to create the opportunity to just for people to hear some of the things that you have learned in these roles. So let's start with all of you. As you took on these jobs, both CEO, president, ED, what have been the biggest aha moments for you as you've learned our sector and learned about libraries? And Patrick, jump in. Why don't you start?
Sure. I think, for me, the biggest aha moment really falls into two camps. One, I was expecting, we are a well-run but smallish 10-person staff foundation. We are well-funded. We have a great relationship with our donors in the philanthropic community, and sort of expected to be able to get in and very quickly, work through some of the work of the library, and being a part. And we really look at this as a collaborative nature, being a part of the library system as a city entity, and we are the private entity. We have to wait for some of those city machines to work in order to get some of the stuff, some initiatives through. But at the same time, there is a nimbleness or an agility that's needed on behalf of the foundation to meet rising and rapid needs of the library system throughout the year. So all the best planning at the beginning of the year doesn't necessarily mean that at the end of the year, those exact same initiatives are the ones that you've addressed or tackled. So being able to be patient with the city as a city entity, but then also being able to be nimble and quick with meeting the needs of the library has been a big aha moment for us.
Excellent. Excellent. Kristin, Brenda, what do you guys think?
I'll jump in. So yeah, I would underscore everything that Patrick has said. There's, having come from Jonna, as you mentioned, I ran the foundation that partnered with the Chicago Park District, and then after that, the largest literacy organization that partners with Chicago Public Schools. And so, familiar with the public-private space. I will say that, the Chicago Public Library Foundation has a reputation here in town for being, one of the most solid public-private partnerships in the way that it was founded. So we were founded to, really kind of be the innovation lever that CPL can pull on, to fund the, above and beyond, right, what the city dollars can do. The big aha moment for me in terms of how the foundation was founded is that the founders of the organization were so smart in setting the organization up as the fundraising arm, but also not as a policy advocacy group, but as an influential advocacy group to be sure that city budgets remain intact, right? Mm-hmm. And so to be an additional partner in terms of that influence and protecting city budgets for libraries. Unfortunately, we've had mayors over the years who, have really invested in our city's libraries, especially on the capital side, so that we can really focus on the programmatic. But the biggest aha moment, I will say, is how tight the library sector community is, right? And Jonna, in my first months, I attended the conference last year, and getting to know you and Kristin, you and Patrick and others in this foundation sector. There aren't other public-private partnership communities really like this, and it's really especially now as we envision what investment in our library sector means. I think this community is more important than ever.
Oh, that's great. So I came to this role in October of 2019 as an interim executive director. King County Library System is different. We are not a government entity, despite our name and the way it sounds. We are tax funded, property tax funded. So while we do have strategic partnerships with electeds and officials, it's a different dynamic. I think what I was struck by most when I first arrived was the untapped potential for fundraising that libraries had. I was blown away by how, not to demean my foundation in any way or other library foundations I work with, but just how much more fundraising we could be doing. Libraries are beloved institutions. The biggest hurdle we face in many sectors is helping to getting ourselves on that philanthropic map, right? There are folks, there are people, there are foundations that see libraries as I pay my taxes, you are government funded, why do I need to support you philanthropically? Which is a similar situation to where hospitals were, 25 years ago, having to make the case for insurance doesn't cover everything. We have an incredible case to make. We have incredible opportunity for fundraising. So that was number one. And number two was kind of a corollary to that, which is, wow, we have the potential to really go a lot bigger. We can have so much more impact on our communities. We're already doing a ton, but we can do even more. And that to me is very exciting.
Fabulous, fabulous.
That's right.
See, you can understand the energy, and what I have to say, I love the fresh perspective and just what you brought to this. Brenda, when we've talked before, we've talked about opportunities in the sector around like a national support. What can we be doing that, helps elevate library philanthropy in the minds of a broader audience, the bigger funders? You want to talk a little bit more about the potential you see there?
Yeah, I think, we are living in a time right now that, libraries are as critical as ever. And, what we're seeing right now, even with the spring appeal, is that people are, missing their libraries. Our library branches will open back up in the next couple of weeks. So we're seeing first-time donors at the $5 level, at the $10 level. And I think it's, people are missing their library branches. They're understanding what the library means as we think about, dismantling systemic racism and, social justice and public health and all of these things that are happening at once. And, I was talking to our team yesterday about how we fund programs. And what we're really going to look at is like, how do we create systems? Not just program models, but systems that address some of these things, right? And so what we're looking at is, to Kristin's point, the opportunity is tremendous, because I think that the library foundation sector specifically has an opportunity to start building pipelines between schools, parks, libraries, kind of like all roads literally lead to the library. This is where the discourse is happening that is going to impact change. So how are we, yes, raising money specifically for the library system, but in ways that build better systems to advance our communities and address some of these needs. I don't know what that looks like. We're all in positions right now in leadership where it's like, we don't know a lot of things, but that's why we need each other. And that's what, we need to be, in the communities, talking to communities, and, figuring out what private investment, can do to, advance the sector.
So Patrick, kind of jumping off from what Brenda just said, you have a really unique, close relationship with your head of your library director.
Yes.
And, thinking about, as Brenda's talking, this idea around understanding the partnerships, the relationships, what we can do. Talk to us about how that relationship, what you see as best in making that work, and how that's enabling your foundation to have greater impact.
Sure. Well, for our relationship, for example, Misty Jones, our library director, and myself have come at, she's been with the library for about 4 years now, a little more than 4 years as director. She was deputy director beforehand. And in the year that I've been there, we've spent a lot of time together, both of our teams and the two of us together, talking a lot about equity and equal access and the ability to provide programming and across the entire system. San Diego is a very large and diverse geographically and demographically region, butting up against the border to the south, and of course the coast, and these communities that are very very different yet have very similar needs when it comes to creating access, and the library, using the library as the innovation forefront of the future, that which is providing equal access to education and cultural enrichment and technology, that kind of thing. So the two of us come at this and have designed narratives with our teams around this exact same thread. Now, what we've found, for example, since we've closed, is the opportunity for us, for example, has dramatically grown to elevate that narrative, right? So no sooner did we close than did the community, and again, we've been talking about this for a year, need to understand, digital access and virtual access and the kinds of programming that's equally stretched across the entire system. The moment that goes away is the moment that everybody says, oh, that this is seriously important, right? I see what Misty and her team have been doing. I see what Patrick and his team have been advocating for and communicating in the community. And we're seeing, a big push coming back to the library, right? And we won't be open for a while, but on the digital and virtual side, the programs that we had been pushing and talking about, and a lot of those programs, again, are funded by the foundation. And we're very excited to talk to donors about that in our philanthropic community. And we've gone from talking about it, saying, these are the kinds of initiatives that Misty is looking for. These are the kinds of ways that we want to create equal access across the entire system, to now having the donors, our philanthropic community, the city leaders, elected officials and whatnot, they see it firsthand, right? And they understand it firsthand. And so I think for us, Misty and her team and the foundation and our team have been talking the same talk and walking the same walk. And what we're seeing now, the public and our citizens are saying, I feel firsthand, tangibly, what you've been discussing and what you've been bringing out to us, and how can we help? And that's been the greatest thing that we've heard, is how can we help?
Well, okay, so Kristin, since we are neighbors and we share similar donors, we share lots of different things. Our conversation started quite early with why are we reinventing the wheel on some of these things, and the hurdles that you have seen that we face in our sector, that maybe say in healthcare and hospital fundraising, where you collectively had solved some of the tools or the things that you needed. So you want to talk about some of your observations on the hurdles and the things that, like, we're working too hard.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think to Patrick's point, libraries have been, or somewhat invisible, right? I did a campaign feasibility study for a library last summer, and one of the donors I interviewed said, libraries are kind of white noise. They're always there, and you don't think about them until you need them. And that got me to thinking a lot about the case for support. And it's something that libraries have really got to wrestle to the ground. It takes some time, but when you get that messaging right, it can be so powerful. So I think that's one of the biggest hurdles I see is just talking about the impact of the library and making us visible on the philanthropic landscape. The other piece I see is in higher education and in healthcare, shops have really pivoted to raising unrestricted dollars. And it's not like you go out and you say, would you give us money to use for anything? That's not how you approach it, right? It's talking about all the amazing things that libraries are already doing and asking for support for that mission. So I just see the need to really make that pivot. It gives the system that you support so much more flexibility. It gives your board so much flexibility. It really is the engine of that innovation machine that we exist for. And then finally, getting really clear about library funding, library foundations, and our return on investment. This is something healthcare did very well about 15 years ago, really quantifying how much it costs to bring in the dollars that the fundraising shops were bringing in and comparing that to medical service lines directly. And healthcare fundraising was so much more profitable service line for a healthcare entity, that it helped to elevate the message throughout hospital systems. I don't think libraries suffer in the same way that healthcare foundations did. But the bottom line for me is it's time for libraries to be bold, right? It is time to be brave, to be bold. This is not a time to sit back and not ask. Donors want to support us right now. And I feel like this is libraries' moment. I really do.
Oh, so I'm holding on to two things right here as you were talking, because the last thing that you said, many of the participants in this conference, whether you're a library director or you're a trustee, whoever's managing those budgets of the library, and if you're trying to figure out, if you don't have a foundation, but you know you need private support, that idea around the efficiency of fundraising as a way to generate resource for your organization is actually a quite valuable one, because it would help a library director make a bet. You know, am I going to invest in a development person, or am I going to invest in another programming person? If I don't invest in the development person, I'm never going to get the funding for the program, or vice versa. Return on your investment is a really important one.
And if you can pivot to unrestricted funding, you will see a lot more growth in your fundraising. So you have a better ROI.
So unrestricted fundraise. So I've always viewed unrestricted gifts, small donor, fund our operations, and it allows us to actively fundraise for programs and get the bigger gifts. When COVID hit and we unlocked or unbound the library from the grants that they had asked for, we said, clearly this has got to change. You've got to use this money differently. We're not going to be doing programming and buying books quite the same way we have been. But what that also did is say, okay, but that also means we now will be raising unrestricted money, and come with us on this journey. You library, help us raise this unrestricted money, and in exchange for that, we need to have better understanding of what you're doing in real time. That share your story, we can be talking about it. If we can keep going down this path of unrestricted funding, and still bring in the larger gifts, it can unleash us in ways that has been a drag on our systems around, just even the complexity of reporting and asking for money, all the internal things that can make it trickier business. So I'm with you there. I just hope. I'm hoping we're going to figure this out.
I think that there is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Patrick. I'll go.
I was just going to say, I think that there is a movement here around unrestricted dollars, philanthropically speaking, to begin with. The San Diego Foundation, the San Diego Women's Foundation, just recently had a webinar that talked specifically about this, and this experience that we've been going through in the last 3 months. It exemplifies the need, highlights and amplifies the need for this kinds of funding. And this is, to get back to the very first question, what was that aha moment? When you realize that there are a whole host of things that come up throughout the year that the library needs to pivot towards. And a lot of those things are innovation driven or technology driven. And you're not seeing them maybe a year ago in order to fundraise a year later. Right. And I think that is something, I think that's something that has been, that has come up out of this 3 months that we've been through. And a lot of our philanthropic partners on both the fundraising and the funding side are beginning to recognize this and are beginning to start to educate their donors a little bit more about this.
Good.
Yeah, I think all of that. I mean, Patrick and Kristin, you're so great. So agree with everything that you're saying. I think, this is an important, Kristin, to your point, this is such an important time for libraries. And I think that value proposition to our funders is stronger than ever. There's something really in the conversations that I had and the first few days after the branches, our 81 branches had to close. As I was talking to funders, there was this high level of emotion, right? And I was trying to figure out what it was. And, then it occurred to me a couple of days after we closed that there's something especially dramatic about a crisis where a public library has to close.
Yeah.
Right? like this is the 150, almost 150 years in 2023. We'll be celebrating that one for a long time, of the Chicago Public Library. Like there has not been a crisis that necessitated a library branch closing, right? In fact, the opposite, everyone goes in. So I think there will be this kind of like rush into the library, and then we will figure out what that investment means. So for us in Chicago, what the foundation has done is like, we're pulling away from kind of this like portfolio of programs that we funded and moving toward like, these are the different impact areas that we're focused on, right? Yeah. And because, to both of your points, that does get us in this space of essentially like unrestricted dollars focused on a specific need. And then we have kind of the space to create what that is. Right. And I think, it also, here in Chicago gets us to a place where we can be more specific about addressing community needs instead of we have a portfolio of programs and we do those in branches. Right. But what do our branches really need? What do our communities really need? And how do we build that out? So, Jonna, I think that, as the fundraising sector, to your point, we do have this opportunity to use a collective voice to talk to the funding community about how essential this need is, and then, have the space to create.
And I think the piece that I'll add on to that too is just from the systemic racism and all the injustices that have happened to our Black Americans. There is such a natural role for the library as the convener, the place to come together, the healing spot, the conversation. Yes. And again, unrestricted funding, it allows us to help work in different ways. It will open new doors, but we are going to be the jet fuel that helps these libraries really transform their work so that the equity piece of it is front and center. So
that's right. And just one more thought on that, Jonna. And our library partners, the doors of the libraries are going to open, and it is not going to be business as usual. No. Right. And so I think, I am constantly reminding, our partners at CPL, like, we are here for you. We stand with you. We are here for you. And I think that message is going to resonate now more than ever.
Yeah. So we have time for just one last question to kind of close this out. And, I talk about this as our library support network. It's an informal, loose network. We're it is what it is, right? Pretty homespun. But from your seats and your vantage points, what do you think, or what do you need and want from this network? What would help you, and where do you think it could go to help our sector?
Every library system is as different as it is alike. We are supporting libraries, and we know what libraries do, and we know the value that they have in the community. And I think, now more than ever, as Brenda was saying, yes, people come to libraries, but libraries are going to have to go to people, meet the community where they're at. And I think in being able to, as Brenda also said, being able to stand with you and support you as we're figuring out what this new operation, this new normal, so to speak, looks like. Each one of our fundraising organizations are going to be doing this differently, and we have different relationships with our city partners, our library directors, our library partners, the friends groups, our communities, this kind of thing. And I think the real value in this network, being homespun or otherwise, is being able to tap into that collective knowledge that other folks have in the way that they are solving some of these problems themselves, and being able to offer solutions to each other as well. I think that we're embarking on something. We're embarking on a bit of the unknown, and each one of our groups are going to embark upon that differently based on our environmental factor and economic factor around that, and being able to tap into that brain power, and being able to learn and use and employ what we're learning from one another is going to be extremely valuable at this point.
That's right. Kristin, what do you think?
Well, I would say yes to everything Patrick mentioned. Also, this pandemic has laid bare some very ugly inequities in American society and in our nation as a whole. Libraries are embedded within that conversation. Look at how quickly libraries pivoted with the pandemic. We went from being physical building-based entities to wholly online digital entities in a matter of weeks. So I believe that we are in many ways returning to our founding as a core institution of a democratic society, which is so vital. And libraries, and this group in particular, have the opportunity to really raise their voice in this discussion and provide not only the platform, but also the funding to help really drive great, I think, conversations, dialogue, and community-based programs.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, I would say everything that Patrick and Kristin said, and also add, Jonna, thank you so much for bringing this, for fueling, really what has become, this partnership. It's, really, really important right now. So just to add quickly to what Patrick and Kristin shared, like right now, from where I sit, like I need your friendship, right, of this community. And to be able to be in this space where, and I've been talking with, my staff team about this, like, we're going to figure this out together, but not one of us is going to figure it out on their own. And there is not one leader, right now that can figure it out on their own. So we need each other now more than ever, virtually, hopefully in person sooner rather than later. But I think we need to be honest with each other, honest with our funders, and vulnerable, when we need to be, because that's the only way that we're going to find the strength to figure out the way forward.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so very much. I wish we had more time. We could build a whole conference around these kinds of conversations. Oh, wait, we just did that, didn't we? So thank you for your time, your passion, your commitment to the greater good. And I so appreciate all of you. Thank you for doing this.
Jonna.
Likewise, thank you.
Hi, Jonna. Are you there?
There you are. Something changed. Well, okay. First off, thanks so much for sharing the Library Giving Day results. When I heard the $1 million number, I thought, oh, yes, we've arrived. So thank you for that. And I just want to say a couple things about the whole conference. I guess just this whole virtual journey we've been on. Whova, this app, was built for conferences, in person. And just like we were all pivoting, they were pivoting to create this virtual thing. And there's a few little wrinkles in it, but ultimately it worked. And I think that the communication and all the activity that's happening within the app is pretty lovely. And any of you who presented, I encourage you to double check and look for some of the questions that still might be lingering out there related to the conversation that you started from your session. And then I think anyone who's got questions that haven't been answered, feel free to kind of tap this network and try to get some answers for that. I want to also say one more thing, just to say thank you again to our sponsors. Couldn't do this, just could not do this. So Carl Bloom, but I'll get back to you guys. But Bloomerang, Campaign Council, Library Strategies Consulting Group, Campbell Rinker, Giving Design, and Every Library Institute. You guys all have been key to this, but boy, Carl Bloom and Associates, Rob, Katie, Christina, I know you have sweated some of these things out this last 3 days, and you probably all need a vacation because it's been intense, but you have made things work so well. So I just say thanks for that. And then one last thing before I just pass things over to you, Christina, to just to speak to some final things. I'm just putting out a call to all of you who are participating here that you are doing great work. You're doing interesting things. and we want to be able to showcase that. And so there'll be an opportunity to call comes out for content and who wants to participate, as well as I think that we will continue to look for how do we augment this work and this network and turn it into something more. And I want to figure out how to get more of you involved in it. So just know that's kind of where we want to take things. And I just can't thank you all enough for being so generous with your time and ideas and energy. And it makes this network pretty darn special. So, Christina, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, so a couple of quick things. We did ask you a couple of poll questions at the start of the Library Giving Day session, and I'll just quickly read those. Of the people listening, did your organization participate in the 2019 Library Giving Day? Of the 73 answers, 58% said yes, and 42% said no. And let's see what happened in 2020. Oh, wonderful. It looks like the numbers grew. So in 2020, we had 70% of the people on the line today watching the session said that they did participate. So for the other 30%, we'd love to have you next year. I wanted to also announce our winners. So we have as the community, the leaderboard community winner, it is Sherilyn Hedrow from the Friends of the Dallas Public Library. And Sherilyn, we will send you a $100 Amazon gift card virtually. It will be coming to your email. And then the photo contest winner is Suzanne Moore. And Suzanne is the county librarian from Ashe County Public Library. And Suzanne, we will be sending you the same or a separate $100 Amazon gift card. Jonna, am I forgetting anything? There will be a post-conference survey. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And how about the dates? Next conference.
We are still looking at Austin in July 2021. Of course, Jonna and I do not have a magic ball. I call Jonna the Oracle, but I don't think that she knows what's going to happen. So we will keep you all posted, but the hope is to be able to be in Austin, Texas in July 2021. And so with that, Jonna, I'll turn it over to you for any final thoughts.
I'm just going to say we're signing off. Thank you all for participating and being part of this, and look forward for us to continue the conversation. And thank you all. It's been great. Bye now.
Bye.